Good afternoon, students. This is a continuity of the part 6 of our biology video. So let me continue with the one of the cell organelle where we can say also these are all the cell organelles. So what basically in general the cell is made up of, the first part what we are going to study, that is the outer part, that is called as a plasma membrane. So plasma membrane, as we started in the last video itself only, let us go to the structure now, the structure of the plasma membrane. Yes, Jonathan Singer, okay, please understand, S. Jonathan Singer and Gert Nicholson in 1972 proposed the fluid mosaic model. So, fluid mosaic model to describe the structure of the plasma membrane. So, for describing the structure of the plasma membrane, so he started one experiment called as a fluid mosaic model. So describe the structure of the plasma membrane. The second one is according to this model, the plasma membrane contains a bimolecular lipid layer. Bimolecular lipid bilayer. Students, let me draw in a separate sheet that I can show you what it is. Actually, I have drawn the diagram. Let me explain first and show you the diagram. So, what I said, the sentence here, that is according to this model, the plasma membrane contains a bimolecular lipid layer, both surfaces of which are interrupted by the protein molecules. So, I am drawing here diagram. Okay, everywhere like this. I have drawn the diagram. I'll show you. So this is the plasma membrane, students. This is the plasma membrane. So this is the outer layer and this is the inner layer. This is the two layer fluid mosaic. Means in between these two there will be a proteins. Am I clear? So this is how the structure, students. This is the plasma membrane. So that is what the meaning. According to this model, the plasma membrane contains a bimolecular lipid layer. So this is the lipid layer, students. This is the lipid layer. Okay. This is the lipid layer, both the surfaces of which are interrupted by the protein molecules. So in between these two layers, henceforth only they are calling it as a fluid mosaic model. In between two layers there will be a stuff. The stuff is nothing but the proteins. Henceforth it is called as a fluid mosaic model. Then coming to some proteins are attached at the polar surface of the lipid, that is extrinsic proteins or peripheral proteins. So some proteins are attached. Students, some proteins are attached, that is a peripheral. Means peripheral, the word meaning is nothing but the outside. Okay, away from the center, where exactly the meaning of the word where we can say that is nothing but the away from the center. Okay, that is we can say that away from the center is called as a peripheral, where we can say it is a peripheral. That is a peripheral proteins are the extrinsic proteins, while others, that is intrinsic, are the internal proteins. So where we can call it as another proteins, intrinsic or integral proteins. So intrinsic, this is the intrinsic, inside it is going to be present. Okay, this is called as the intrinsic or the integral protein. So either partially penetrated the bilayer, either partially means half of that is going to be penetrated, or snap the membrane entirely to stick out on the both the side. So transmembrane proteins. So what the sentence of meaning or the point meaning, I'll repeat once again. Some proteins are attached at the polar surface of the lipids. So where it is attached? At the polar This is the polar side. Okay, this is a non-polar. I'll explain later. So chargeable, non-chargeable. Okay, so polar, that is the polar surface of the lipid, that is a which is going to have the proteins called as a intrinsic, that is a extrinsic as well as a intrinsic proteins is going to be present, either partially, that is a penetrated the bilayer, or snap the membrane entirely to stick out on the both the sides. So which is going to stick on the both the sides. ಎರಡು ಕಡೆನೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Next, coming to the on the account of fluidity of lipids, on the account of fluidity of the lipids and proteins and the mosaic arrangement of model of proteins molecules, this model membrane structure is known as a fluid mosaic model. Now they are telling about the how the name has been described for the plasma membrane. So how they have described, on account of the fluidity of the lipids, so which is having the content of the fluidity means liquid, okay, lipids and the proteins both which are there is a formation of the plasma membrane by the combination of the two substances. One is a lipid and another one is the that is a protein. So proteins and lipids are nothing but the macromolecules. We are going to study in the mineral nutrition chapter. Am I clear? So lipids and the proteins and the mosaic arrangement of the protein molecules. So not only the plasma membrane which is made up of the lipids and the proteins which is arranged in the form of, or the pattern, that is in the form of that is a protein molecules in the mosaic form. Henceforth the plasma membrane, now it is called as a fluid mosaic. So these are the two scientists beginning in the beginning of the video. Only I said this, the Singer and Nicholson. This is 1 mark point of view and a competitive point of view. It is very important, students. So on account of fluidity of lipids and the proteins, the mosaic arrangement of a protein molecules is model of a membrane structure is known as a fluid mosaic model. Then the fluid mosaic model is found to be applied to all the biological membrane in general and is seen in dynamic and that is ever changing structure. So importance what we are going to study in this point. The fluid mosaic model is found to be applied to all the, it is as we said that it is the generalized part of the cell where we can say, is it or not? So it is a generalized part where we can say the structure applied to all the biological membrane. What is biological? Bio means what? Living organism means. It means for all the living organism, the membrane is applicable or the membrane is present as a boundary or the outer layer. Okay, so a biological in general and seen as a dynamic ever changing structure. Dynamic, it is doing all functions, it seems. That's why we used to call it as it is dynamic and ever changing. It won't be changing, it won't be changed. It is a common or it is applicable for all the living, that is living organisms of the cells. This is the meaning of the point or the sentence. So let us continue. There are 2 more points where we can say related to the structure. So the proteins present are not meant to give the strength but to serve as enzymes. Please students note the point. Okay, the proteins present are not meant to give the strength. It is present, the proteins not to give the strength but serves as enzymes. So one of the enzyme characteristic feature, that is a catalyzing chemical reaction. Catalyzing means breakdown. So what is the function of the enzyme? To help to break down. That is one of the catalytic breaking down. Okay, lytic means breakdown. That is a catalyzing chemical reaction. It is nothing but the metabolic reaction within the membrane and has pumps moving things across it. What is the function? Actually, what we want to say that in our body also proteins in the sense it is ultimately fixed in all the minds in general. We used to speak about the proteins are nothing but the nutrients which is going to supplement the food or enriching the nutrients. is it not? Proteins as such, what we know that. But whatever the proteins which is present in the plasma membrane, it is not serving as a food or the energy, but it is serving as a enzymes to break down. So what it is going to do with the breaking down of those enzymes, it helps in the moving of the particles across the cell. So across the cell which is going to move, andre so surroundings of the cell which is going to supply the nutrients, water, whatever it may be, the substance. That is the meaning. And there are also unbranched and branched chains of sugars attached to the, that is the lipids, proteins in the external surface. So there will be a supply of nutrients also in the form of sugars. So this is what the diagram, student. So when I am taking in the live class, I'll explain in detail. Thank you, students.